everyone, and welcome back to the channel. 2025 is now upon us, so first things first, wishing you all a very happy new year. To kick things off for the start of 2025 here on the channel, we're going to be taking a look at the year in review, compiling a list of the very best aircraft add-ons available for Microsoft Flight Simulator. We're going to be covering add-ons from both MSFS 2020 and 2024, given that many of us are still using both platforms. For the sake of clarity, I will list down in the video description which add-ons are available for which sim, and I will endeavour to keep that information up to date in order to keep this video relevant throughout the year. It is worth noting I have adjusted the format of the listings just a little bit this year, removing one or two categories versus the previous year, and adding a couple of new ones in also. For this year's list, unfortunately we're not going to be covering any ultralights, bushplanes or rotary aircraft, primarily owing to the fact that they are now incredibly numerous for the sim. I haven't had a chance to fly the vast majority of them, and so of course it would be unfair for me to comment on which ones are the best. So if those are the sorts of aircraft that you're into within the sim, this list probably won't be of all that much use to you. Otherwise though, we are going to be covering the vast majority of aircraft types available for MSFS, including this year an expanded look at the commercial jets, a category which I'm sure is of interest to many of you. Also included, we'll have a best of the rest section, and as well I'll be nominating what I think was the best add-on release of 2024. As always, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. And if you would like to help support the content further, you can do so by becoming a channel member or patron. So we're going to start today's video running through what I've deemed to be the best of the rest. Essentially here just running through a couple of add-ons that didn't make it onto my list but are certainly worthy of mention. We'll talk through each add-on very briefly, discussing its strengths and weaknesses, and as well perhaps why it didn't make it into any particular category. So the first add-on worthy of mention is the Blackbird Simulations T6 Texan 2. An absolutely excellent add-on in nearly every respect, as you would expect from Blackbird Simulations. I did consider putting this aircraft into the single-engine turboprop category, and certainly there it could have quite comfortably taken the silver award. But ultimately I decided that I wanted to keep the aircraft within that category civilian aircraft. I think that's what most people are interested in operating within the sim. Next we have the CALS DA42, again a really excellent effort, certainly worthy of mention. And once more, this could quite comfortably have sat in the multi-engine prop category, probably taking the bronze award. We do now though have quite a lot of nice aircraft to choose in that category, and it was a toss-up really between the CALS DA42 and the FlySimWare Cessna 414 Chancellor. Following on from that, we have the Azure Poly Bronco. I did consider putting this somewhere in the multi-engine turboprop category, again though I wanted to keep that broadly civilian. The Bronco is a really unique and interesting aircraft, excellent visibility as well, which makes it a great option for Microsoft Flight Simulator. The one aspect of the aircraft that ultimately kept it off the list was the flight modelling. Overall I think the aircraft feels a little bit lightweight, and therefore there are better multi-engine turboprops available, but certainly for sightseeing this is one of the best. Next we have the Flight Sim Studios Boeing 727 Freighter. Overall this aircraft was one of the real pleasant surprises of 2024. Flight Sim Studios have been a little bit hit and miss with some of their releases in the sim, but the 727 absolutely excellent. Really nice as well to have another proper vintage jet in the sim. The aircraft is very interesting, very rewarding to operate, and probably one of my most enjoyed add-ons currently available for the sim. However, the level of quality isn't quite on a par with some of the other commercial jets. And obviously the commercial jet category is pretty crowded at this point, so just picking 5 was quite difficult. As you can see, we do have a number of other commercial jets also featuring here in the best of the rest category. Next we have the TFDI MD-11. Again, overall a very enjoyable jet, another very nice aircraft, another very nice add-on. It is a little bit pricier versus some of the competition, and there are some areas in which it still currently falls a little bit short. For example, some of the texturing not quite on a par with some of the best add-ons, same as well with the sound sets, and there are still some system issues that need fixing up. So once more, an add-on that I certainly wouldn't regret purchasing. The MD-11 is of course another iconic aircraft and very interesting to operate. I think though the jet just needs a little bit more refinement before it really justifies the price tag. Following on from that, we have the Leonardo MD-82 Mad Dog. The Mad Dog I always think is a little bit of a shame. It is one of the best jets available for the sim, without a doubt, some of the highest level of depth in terms of systems modelling. Again though, it is a pretty pricey aircraft, the textures are fairly dated, same as well the sound set rather lackluster. Leonardo did also introduce a couple of MD-80 variants, and as well I gather they're working on a texture upgrade as well as a sound upgrade. Had either or both of those been free, I think they would have very much justified the price point of the product and certainly elevated the product overall. Both though are in fact going to be paid upgrades, which again I think makes it difficult to justify the price point, and sadly, as a result for me at least, puts the MD-80 here only in the best of the rest category. Next we have the Just Flight Hawk T1A. Another brilliant little aircraft, visually stunning externally, really nice sounds as well, and one of the few full fidelity military jet trainers that we have available within the sim. The Hawk has occupied this list for a number of years, but it has now just fallen out of favour, knocked down by both Just Flight's Vulcan and the India Foxteco Panavia Tornado. The add-on is still a highly detailed rendition of the T1, particularly with regards to the aircraft systems. The flight model though these days does feel pretty quirky, though I gather Just Flight are working on an update to that. Following on, again we have the Inibuild's A300, once more a really nice add-on. I think it's actually one of the better flight models I've come across in the sim. I believe as well we're still waiting on the failure modelling, and as well Inibuilds are asking for an upgrade fee into Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, at least for the premium version. Again, whilst of course that update does require some work, it would have been very nice to have seen that as a free upgrade, and so once more the aircraft is bested by the competition in some regards. Lastly, we have the Just Flight F-28 Professional, once more a superb little regional retro jet. Another brilliant add-on from Just Flight, and really again the only reason the aircraft isn't on the list is the space is just so crowded. There are many excellent add-ons available now, particularly in that commercial jet category. So those are the main add-ons that I feel are worthy of mention outside of this list. Of course though, there are a whole host of other excellent add-ons available for Microsoft Flight Simulator, featured both in today's video and otherwise. Now though, let's work our way into the main body of the video itself, and we'll start with the single engine prop category. So to get things started here in 2025 and taking the Bronze Award for the single engine prop category, we have the Black Square Analog Bonanza. Once again, as a result of Black Square's Analog Overhaul series, we have an absolutely superb upgrade available for one of the default aircraft within the sim. The package is an upgrade to the default Bonanza as opposed to a standalone mod, and as a result it does make use of some of the default sounds, external modelling and flight modelling. Internally though, as you can see, the cockpit has received a massive upgrade. The aircraft system's depth and modelling is right up there with the very best, making the Bonanza very realistic and immersive to operate. The aircraft is compatible with the TDS Garmin GTN XI, so the Analog Bonanza is certainly a great option for any of you that wish to practice your single engine IFR flying. Next on the list, and taking the Silver Award, we have the Just Flight PA-38 Tomahawk. The Tomahawk is one of Just Flight's most recent GA aircraft releases, and the add-on really does represent a culmination of all of Just Flight's expertise and experience developing within Microsoft Flight Simulator. Visually, the Tomahawk is a step above Just Flight's previous GA efforts, and the aircraft also comes with a whole host of additional features, including modelled wear and tear, a fully interactable walk-around mode. The flight model of the PA-38, also one of the better general aviation flight models that I've come across within the sim. The aircraft and its flight controls do have a genuine feeling of weight to them, something which I believe was true to life of the real-world Tomahawk. And as always with Just Flight and the add-ons, the aircraft sounds excellent, once again making for a highly immersive experience. The Just Flight Tomahawk is the perfect add-on for some simple, honest, single-engine flying. Taking the Gold Award once again in the single engine prop category. I'm sure this result comes as absolutely no surprise to most of you. We of course have the A2A Acusim Comanche. It is pretty hard to find any significant faults with the Comanche. The aircraft really pushes the boundaries within the sim. Visually there are better options out there, but otherwise the aircraft comes with an absolute plethora of excellent features. The Comanche makes use of an external flight model, giving it unique handling characteristics within Microsoft Flight Simulator. Systems depth, modelling and immersion are pretty much second to none within the sim. and it's hard really to do the Comanche justice in just these few short seconds. Ultimately though, the Comanche is one of the best aircraft available for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and indeed for any sim. So the Bronze Award for the multi-engine category goes to the FlySimware Cessna 414. Still, after all this time, an excellent twin option available for the sim. The product includes a visually beautiful model, the aircraft sounds excellent, and it flies pretty nicely as well. Really, the only reason that the Chancellor is down here in third place is there's no failure modelling, and those sorts of things are becoming fairly standard options on top-tier add-ons these days. Certainly, they do help to deliver a much more immersive experience within the sim. Dropping down one place from last year's list, we have the Milviz, or now Blackbird Simulations, Cessna 310R. Up until the release of the A2A Comanche, the 310R was probably the most comprehensive add-on available for the sim. I've heard mixed opinions on the flight modelling, but certainly I would say that the flight model holds up as well as most other aircraft available within Microsoft Flight Simulator. The 310 is much more of a handful on a single engine than most other aircraft within the sim. The texturing perhaps now starting to look a little bit dated, but still very clean, very precise. The 310 sounds excellent, it has very nice systems depth. The aircraft comes with some unique features, and to this day still has some of the best wear and tear, the best failure modelling available on the platform. For our Gold Award in the multi-engine prop category, we have the absolutely excellent Black Square Piston Duke. Whilst Black Square's initial efforts within Microsoft Flight Simulator were upgrades to default aircraft, as we've seen with the Bonanza, ultimately the developer did decide to branch out into standalone add-ons, and Black Square now makes some of the most realistic and detailed add-ons available for the sim. Where Black Square always really shines is the systems modelling of their aircraft, and the systems of the Piston Duke have been modelled in exacting detail. We also get a beautiful internal and external model, highly immersive aircraft sounds, and a whole host of custom aircraft features including failure modelling, wear and tear, state saving. The flight modelling is also generally very good. I slightly prefer the Piston Duke over the Turbine Duke in that regard. Overall, there is very little to pick apart between the Cessna 310 and the Piston Duke, but with the latter having a high level of systems depth and as well a much more beautiful visual model, it does set the Black Square Duke apart from the competition. Next up, and a new category then for this year's list, we're going to be taking a look at the Radial Engine options available for the sim. In third place, and taking the Bronze Award, we have Asobo's local legend number 8, that is, of course, the de Havilland DHC-4 Caribou. Whilst the aircraft is certainly not as detailed as many other add-ons available for the sim, and certainly many other add-ons featured within this list, overall, Asobo, in conjunction with Orbex, have managed to provide a very entertaining and obviously very reasonably priced add-on. The visual model of the Caribou is top-notch, the aircraft sounds, flight model, systems depth all decent enough. And given what a unique aircraft the Caribou is, both visually and in terms of aircraft performance, I think the aircraft is worthy of your consideration, once again, especially considering the price. Taking the Silver Award for this category, we have another local legend. This time we have Local Legend 5, which is a collaborative effort between Asobo and Coronado, and of course the aircraft in question is the Beech 18. More specifically, I would only highly recommend the Beech 18 to PC users. Really, the aircraft in question here is the Beech 18 in conjunction with the absolutely superb Denark mod. Of course, as always, Coronado have done an absolutely top-rate job with the visuals of the add-on, but as one might expect, by default the flight modelling, systems modelling somewhat left wanting. The Denark mod though, freely available on flightsim.to, and it completely overhauls the Beech 18, actually turning the aircraft into one of the most detailed radial engined add-ons available for the sim. And ultimately, this local legend, in conjunction with the Denark mod, some of the best fun, some of the best value for money available within the sim. The Gold Award goes to an absolute classic and probably comes as no surprise to many of you, and the aircraft in question is of course the PMDG Douglas DC-6. Visually a decent aircraft, although it does have to be said some of the modelling and texturing now starting to show its age a little bit within the sim. The aircraft has nice sounds overall, very good systems depth. The failure modelling is perhaps not all that nuanced by modern standards, but at the end of the day, the DC-6 is still one of a kind available within the sim. And so if vintage prop liners do float your boat, I would say that the add-on is still well worth a look. The Bronze Award for our single-engine turboprop category is today a joint listing. There'll be a couple more throughout the video. And taking third place, we have the Simworks Studios Kodiak 100 and PC-12. Overall, despite offering fairly different experiences, I would say that the two add-ons are broadly on a par with one another in terms of quality. The Kodiak perhaps more suited to rough and ready cargo operations, the PC-12 generally more of an executive experience. And also differentiating the two add-ons, you have the glass cockpit experience of the Kodiak 100 versus the more analog experience of the SWS PC-12. The PC-12 has actually been updated a number of times since we reviewed it here on the channel, and the flight model in particular seems to now be in a much better state. Actually, in terms of flight modelling specifically, I prefer the Kodiak 100 and the PC-12 versus our Silver Award next here on the list. Both add-ons are very nicely polished at this point, particularly with regards to visuals and sounds, whilst the PC-12 does still exhibit a few strange handling characteristics courtesy of the aileron rudder interconnect. Once more, I do actually quite like the flight modelling of Simworks Studios aircraft. They are some of the very few aircraft available for the sim where you really notice some of the torque effects there from that big old turboprop sat up the front. You really do notice the changes in handling as you come up and down on the power, and as well adjust the aircraft speed and configuration. There are also quite a few nice additional features included as well, for example visually modelled passengers and cargo. There is though less in terms of modelled failures and wear and tear versus some of the competition, but both add-ons certainly still offering a quality experience within the sim. The Silver Award within the category goes to the FS Reborn FSR 500. I have to say that it was quite hard to split both second and third place here on the list. Once again, with the FSR 500, we have a very well polished and truly excellent add-on. I know that the developer was very passionate about this project throughout, and that really goes to show. There are in fact a few touches and features included that I've yet to see with any other add-on. With the 500, once again you get a beautiful visual model, excellent custom sounds. Wear and tear is nicely modelled along with various failure options, and there are a number of additional features included with the aircraft. The flight model doesn't produce any untoward behaviour, but it does feel a little bit lightweight, and overall there isn't as much nuance as we've seen with other add-ons. Taking the Gold Award for the single-engine turboprop category, and thoroughly deserving it, is the Black Square TBM 850. The TBM was Black Square's first in-house fully standalone product. The aircraft is an excellent demonstration of what Black Square is actually capable of. The product as well, whilst highly detailed, is slightly slim on some of the additional features that we've come to expect. So for example, you will get a more fleshed out experience with the FSR 500 with regards to ground handling, aircraft loading, things of that nature. Equally though, we do get some features which at the time we had not seen on any other aircraft available within the sim, and indeed within any sim. Visually, the aircraft looks absolutely superb, and the flight modelling I think a step up versus the FSR 500. steam or analog gauges are also a personal preference of mine. I do think they're more interesting to operate within the sim. And once more, the TDS Garmin GTN-XI integrates very nicely into the aircraft, making it a very capable IFR platform. As already mentioned, Black Square are one of the very best devs when it comes to the modelling and depth of their aircraft systems, which again, for me, really helps to elevate the aircraft and the experience versus the competition. Interestingly, the multi-engine turboprop category is still one of the weaker sectors available within the sim. Certainly though, there is not a whole lot that I would call weak about the next 3 aircraft that we have available here on our list. Taking our bronze award is the Black Square Analog King Air. As with Bonanza, once again the King Air is an upgrade for the default version of the aircraft within the sim. As such, once again, one of the product weaknesses is the use of default sounds, the use of the default external model, no external fixtures and fittings, as well no operable doors. As with the Bonanza, the flight model of the King Air relies on changes to the default flight model as opposed to a full overhaul. Where the King Air really shines is once again its level of systems depth, its failure modelling. The level of attention to detail with regards to systems depth is certainly right up there. And for me, that makes the King Air an absolute joy to fly and a very rewarding option available within the sim. Our silver award for the multi-engine turboprop category, once again going to the Azure Poly C160 Transall. I've said it before, I think that Azure Poly are one of the most underrated developers within the sim. Most of their aircraft are finished to a very nice standard and very reasonably priced. The C160 is certainly no exception, and as well, Azure Poly do deserve praise for being one of the devs within Microsoft Flight Simulator that do tend to follow up their releases with a number of excellent product updates. With the Transall, you get a very nice visual model both internally and externally. The cockpit is also very highly detailed, although perhaps just a little bit dated in some areas with its texturing versus other add-ons. Systems depth, whilst not study level by any means, is certainly very decent and again has been upgraded throughout the course of the aircraft's lifespan. The flight model is very enjoyable, the aircraft does feel weighty, very heavy to fly. And as with most Azure Poly add-ons, you do also get a raft of additional features, including, for example, visually modelled cargo. Upon release, the aircraft sound set was somewhat of a weakness with the add-on, but once more, Azure Poly have significantly updated the sound since release, and overall now I think the C160 sounds really great. The Transall is another really nice workhorse within the sim, and once again a very entertaining aircraft to fly. Taking the Gold Award in the multi-engine turboprop category, again probably no surprise to many of you, it is the Black Square Turbine Duke. Much like the Black Square Piston Duke, the turbine version a tour de force in terms of systems modelling and depth. Included with the package is another beautiful visual model both internally and externally, again excellent aircraft sounds. As mentioned earlier, I do slightly prefer the Piston Duke's flight modelling. I find the Turbine Duke to be a little bit twitchy on the controls. That may well be true to life of the real-world aircraft, I'm not entirely sure. Of course, the Piston Duke is a very high-performance aircraft. In essence though, once again, the aircraft exhibits all of the quality and detail that we've come to expect from Black Square, and you'll probably have noticed a little bit of a theme now developing throughout the video. Pretty much anything that Black Square has developed does tend to rank rather highly. They are, without a doubt, producing some of the best add-ons available for the sim. Next up then, we'll cover a personal favourite category of mine within the sim, and we'll take a look at the Warbirds. The Warbird selection available within Microsoft Flight Simulator can be fairly hit and miss. There are, of course, a couple of really great options available, but certainly plenty of decidedly average options as well. Taking the Bronze Award is the Milviz, or now again the Blackbird Simulations FG-1D Corsair. Even now, the aircraft is one of the most feature-complete Warbird options available for Microsoft Flight Simulator. The modelling is decent, the texturing though is starting to look rather dated on the aircraft. I'm not sure how accurate the flight model is, but it's certainly entertaining. The Corsair will definitely bite. The aircraft, when purchased outside of the in-sim marketplace, does come with weapons included. And whilst of course those weapons don't do any material damage within the sim, they are visibly modelled, there are visual effects. So that, coupled with the failure modelling, once again I think makes the Corsair one of the most feature-complete Warbirds available for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Taking the silver award is the Got Friends F4F Wildcat. Got Friends are another really solid dev within MSFS. They never really seem to put a foot wrong, and I think it's fair to say at this point they are somewhat of a community favourite. The F4F certainly very well deserving of making it onto this list. The add-on is visually beautiful, it looks good, it sounds very nice as well. The little Wildcat is certainly great fun to fly. Another Warbird option here as well that does come with the ability to load out weapons with included visual effects. There's no failure modelling on the aircraft, at least there wasn't the last time that I flew it, which is of course a little bit of a shame. Not being able to potentially blow the engine does slightly detract from the Warbird experience. Otherwise though, a great fun little add-on. The Wildcat also comes with built-in carrier capabilities, making for some very interesting flying within Microsoft Flight Simulator. Our gold award for the Warbird category, and once again this was a fairly easy choice overall, once again goes to the Flying Iron BF109G. The 109 and really any of Flying Iron's add-ons really set the bar for Warbirds available within the sim. A number of Flying Iron's efforts could have taken the number 1, 2 and 3 spot within the category, but I've tried to broaden things out. They make some absolutely beautiful and iconic aircraft, but again I would say that the 109 is still their best effort to date. I think where the aircraft really shines is its overall level of immersion, and the sound set certainly goes a long way towards accomplishing that. The engine sounds from the aircraft, at least from what I've seen online, are absolutely spot on. You do though of course as well get a beautiful visual model, a very nice flight model as well. Whilst perhaps still not perfect, Flying Iron do some of the better flight models that I've come across within the sim. Systems modelling is also very good, there's also basic failure modelling. No visual effects modelled of any weapons though, unfortunately, which is really one of the only weaknesses of Flying Iron's products in general. So again, Flying Iron, a very solid developer with many excellent add-ons. Let's now move to something a bit more modern, with the military jets. This particular category has rather gone from zero to hero over the last year or so. Actually pretty difficult to call, but placing in at our number 3 spot is the India Foxteco Panavia Tornado. One of my favourite aircraft in the real world, and India Foxteco have certainly produced a visually stunning recreation of the jet. Very little to fault visually, both internally and externally. As you can see as well, the aircraft does include visual weapons models. Aircraft systems are also pretty detailed. Of course, though, there are limitations on the weapon systems, given that Microsoft Flight Simulator is a civilian simulation. For the flight model, once again, I can't attest to the accuracy, but it is a very rewarding, very interesting, and often challenging aircraft to fly. Certainly, if you pull high alpha maneuvers, the aircraft will bite, you will drop a wing. So with the Tornado, you do have to keep on top of things in terms of aircraft speed and configuration. The sound set, also one of the best available within Microsoft Flight Simulator, courtesy of an excellent free upgrade from Echo 19, one of the best sound devs available for the sim. And the Tornado also comes with lots of nice additional features. India Foxteco have definitely piggybacked off the F14. So we have the equivalent of Jester AI, as well we have lots of external fixtures and fittings, ground equipment and various aircraft configuration options. The Tornado is undoubtedly India Foxteco's best solo project to date. And just over a year ago, the aircraft easily would have made top of the list. Once more though, we do now have some pretty strong competition in the category. Taking the silver award here on our list, the aircraft we're looking at is of course the Just Flight Avro Vulcan. Again, at one point in time this aircraft would have easily topped the list. and almost certainly, if we're looking at just coolness factor alone, the Vulcan taking the top spot. The Vulcan is of course an absolute classic of an aircraft, and Just Flight have rendered it absolutely beautifully within the sim. This is another add-on which it's actually pretty hard to find any fault with. The modelling and texturing are absolutely excellent, the aircraft sounds awesome as well, you do get that iconic howl during the takeoff. Aircraft systems depth, again minus weapons deployment, is essentially study level. And with regards to the flight modelling, I've again heard various opinions, but I really like the way that the Vulcan flies. The aircraft does feel very heavy and very labouring. You can though still throw the aircraft around a little bit at low speed, which of course is true to life of the real world jet. There is lots of nice attention to detail, once again included by Just Flight, making the Vulcan a truly immersive and awesome experience within the sim. And just to cap it off even more, the aircraft is also very reasonably priced. Maintaining the Gold Award for our Military Jets category, once again maybe not a surprise to many of you, it is the Heatblur India Foxteco F-14. Firstly, the texturing, particularly internally, is some of the best that I've seen for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and therefore of course for any sim. Systems depth is great, again basically a study level rendition of the jet minus any weapon systems. And the flight modelling at the time of release was hands down the best flight modelling that I've come across for any fast jet within the sim. The Tomcat is also another add-on that comes with built-in carrier capabilities. The add-on, at least when purchased outside of the marketplace, also comes with its own included freeware aircraft carrier. Once again, the product is very reasonably priced, and you can even get a discount if you own the DCS version of the jet also. The Heatblur F-14 once again gave me one of my most memorable flights of 2023. I don't think there are too many of us out there that don't have a bit of a soft spot for the Tomcat. And to my mind, it is absolutely brilliant being able to take this iconic aircraft anywhere in the world, courtesy of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Taking the Bronze Award then here on our list is the Flight Effects Honda Jet. Getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here, but the Flight Effects Vision Jet also placing number 2 here on our list. It is very difficult really to pick the two products apart, they're both excellent. Overall I put the Vision Jet in the number 2 spot, as I feel it's just slightly more refined, it is a newer product. Also the Vision Jet does have a couple of unique characteristics which make the aircraft really fun to fly. The Honda Jet, again though, a superb add-on, very nice modelling and detailing. There is decent systems depth. The aircraft does certainly make use of some default avionics, but they are very nicely customised. Upon release I wasn't too enthused about the flight modelling, but it has been, in fairness, quite some time now since I last flew the aircraft, so some of those issues may have been addressed. Certainly the Honda Jet has seen a number of updates since release. And very nice features as well, including Navigraph integration, which makes the aircraft very practical, and a great option as well for those of you on the console. So no surprise given that we've already stated it, but our silver award here goes to the Flight Effects Vision Jet. Once more, by and large, the Vision Jet very much on a par with the Honda Jet. I think though, for me, the Vision Jet does feel just a slight cut above. The aircraft is also a little bit more fun to fly, it has excellent visibility. Perhaps though in fairness it is not what one would typically consider a business jet. It is though a really sporty, great little fun aircraft. And ultimately it does offer a fairly unique capability and experience within the sim. As with the Honda Jet, the Vision Jet also offers Navigraph integration along with a whole host of other features. And ultimately I don't think you can go too far wrong with whichever Flight Effects product you choose. Moving from 3rd place up to 1st place this year in our business jet category, we have the FlySimware Learjet 35. Last year the aircraft was in early access and as a result needed quite a bit of work still before it was fully up to speed. As is very typical of FlySimware, the aircraft though of course received a whole host of updates. And now to my mind the Learjet is the best high fidelity business jet and arguably the only true high-fidelity business jet available for the sim. The visual modelling of the aircraft is very good externally, nice as well internally, although I don't think the real-world materials of the Learjet lend themselves very well to PBR renditions within the sim. Texturing detail is very good, very precise, but somehow the aircraft still looks a little bit cartoonish internally. In terms of the flight model, the aircraft's certainly great fun to fly. Overall pretty nice to fly, although it does feel fairly lightweight. Systems depth is very good, again arguably the most detailed bizjet available within the sim. As with FlySimware's other products though, again unfortunately no failure modelling. As I mentioned with their Chancellor, personally I do find that a little bit disappointing, it does somewhat lower the immersion. The Learjet 35 is a little rocket ship in terms of performance, it's an iconic aircraft, and again arguably the only true high fidelity business jet available within the sim. So certainly well worth a look if this is the sort of flying that's of interest to you. Moving on then to our last main category here for the video, and one that I'm sure will be of interest to most of you. Lastly, we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 available commercial jets within the sim. Taking the first of our bronze awards, we have the iFly Boeing 737 MAX 8. The MAX is somewhat pricey by modern Microsoft Flight Simulator standards, but overall iFly is certainly producing a quality add-on for that price. We get a beautiful visual model both internally and externally. For what it's worth, the aircraft has one of the most detailed visual cabin models for any add-on. Systems depth is broadly on a par with the competition. The jet released in early access and there were some issues with automation upon release, but I haven't had a chance to test out the aircraft too much since then. The sound set included with the add-on also very nice, very immersive. Overall there is a very prevalent and obvious feeling of quality throughout the product. In terms of the flight model, I'm no expert when it comes to the Boeing, but overall I would say that the MAX feels slightly more alive on the flight model versus the PMDG 737, and that seems to be corroborated by other real-world 737 pilots. The MAX is an aircraft which I haven't had a chance to spend all that much time with myself, but I would certainly like to do so going forwards. From the time that I have spent with the add-on, it already seems like a very solid offering, and again there have already been a number of updates for the add-on, so the product seemingly going from strength to strength. For the next of our bronze awards, we have another joint listing, this time courtesy of the Just Flight Avro RJ and 146 Professional series. The RJ Professional, obviously a more recent release, and overall that does show, it does have a little bit more quality throughout the add-on. But the 146 still absolutely superb, and by and large the two add-ons are very much on a par with one another. The Just Flight 146 and the RJ, I would say, are broadly on a par to something like the Unibuild's A300 when it comes to systems complexity. Overall, a very solid level of systems depth, and the advantage here you have with the Just Flight add-ons, you do also have failure modelling included as well. Graphically, I would say that the two Just Flight jets are broadly on a par. Again though, at the moment you do just get a slightly higher level of polish with the RJ series, particularly I think internally. The sound sets for both jets absolutely brilliant, they do come off the real world aircraft and that certainly goes to show, so once more making for a very immersive experience. There are better options out there in terms of the flight modelling. Most Just Flight add-ons do seem to go through quite a few iterations and changes on the flight models. Both the 146 and the RJ do feel a little bit lightweight, fairly sporty, but once more the RJ does seem to be a bit of an improvement over its predecessor. Overall, both the RJ and the 146 are very well rounded in nature, which I think is one of the reasons they are both excellent products. The BAE 146 in particular is also a pretty manual machine, pretty hands-on to fly, so it does make it a pretty interesting aircraft to operate within the sim. Taking the last of our bronze awards then, and again it's another joint listing, this time between the PMGG 737 and 777. The 737 has now been available in the sim for quite some time. PMDG were actually one of the first study level developers for Microsoft Flight Simulator. The 777 obviously a much newer release, and as a result, again I think you do get slightly more quality, a slightly more updated look to the aircraft. Of course as well, the 777, a very different beast in terms of systems complexity. But as with the Just Flight aircraft, I do think these two add-ons are broadly on a par with one another. And so I think it's better to group them together as opposed to leaving one of them out. In terms of purchasing, the cost of PMDG's add-ons can vary quite wildly, anywhere from around $35 for the 737-600 all the way through to around $80 for the 777. Splitting the difference though, overall PMDG's aircraft are pretty competitive in terms of pricing, certainly again on a par with the likes of the iFly 737, similar as well to, for example, the TFDI MD-11 or the Leonardo Mad Dog, and the add-ons certainly offer up everything that you would typically expect from a study level jet. The flight modelling of both aircraft seems pretty decent, certainly on a par with most other add-ons available for the sim. PMDG add-ons are usually pretty good as well in terms of hitting the performance numbers. And once more, as far as the systems depth goes, the jet is quote-unquote study level. There is a very high level of systems depth as well as included failure modelling. The sounds are generally good, I would say more so internally than externally. And the texturing, again a very solid effort, although it does look a little bit more dated versus something like the Phoenix A320 for example. PMDG products now also include an onboard tablet and EFB, which certainly brings them up to a more modern standard. In short, both the 737 and the 777 are very accomplished products by PMDG, as you'd expect. And the 737-600 in particular is an absolute steal, and also offers a great entry point if you are looking to get into study level jets within the sim. Another forte, arguably, of both the 737 and the 777 is that the aircraft make use of default Microsoft Flight Simulator flight modelling. As a result, the aircraft is therefore also available for console users. Taking the silver award here on our list, and also the newest entry here onto the list, is the FS Labs A321. Love them or hate them, FS Labs have undoubtedly produced an excellent aircraft for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Arguably, it is the most detailed jet available currently for the sim, and arguably it could therefore have taken the gold award here on our list, although I do have reasons as to why I put it in second place. Again, spoiling things a little bit here ahead of time, but this year it is the Battle of the Buses, and obviously a lot of people are going to be drawing comparisons between the FS Labs Airbus and the Phoenix offering. Overall, the FS Labs bus does have a slight lead in terms of additional features, namely we have the inbuilt Techlog and MEL functionality. The aircraft as well I think also has a slight edge in terms of performing to the numbers, and as well you do get a greater depth and breadth of realistic documentation included with the product. With the add-on you get an excellent visual model both internally and externally, although again slightly bested by the competition in that regard. The same for the sound set, it is very decent, although there are one or two areas that certainly could still use some tweaking. Once more, I think the sound set better on the Phoenix overall. In terms of the flight modelling, both aircraft are very good, not a whole lot that you can draw between the two. I've certainly come across accounts that prefer the FS Labs version of the aircraft. I personally prefer the Phoenix version of the aircraft in terms of how the aircraft actually feels to fly. Overall though, once again, top-notch quality in terms of systems modelling, visual fidelity, flight modelling, aircraft sounds, documentation, included features. The FS Labs version of the aircraft though is more expensive than the competition, and of course as well FS Labs does come with some sort of baggage from previous history and behaviour. So lastly, and I think now for the third year in a row, we have the same aircraft taking what I suppose is the most coveted spot on the list. The gold award, so far as I'm concerned for the airliners, is once again the Phoenix Airbus A320, and now the A320 family. Phoenix have certainly lost some of their headway versus the competition, the likes of PMDG and now FS Labs certainly catching up. But as a developer they have also continued to innovate and update their products, often for free. And so the Phoenix Airbus A320 family still does a lot of things very well and at a very reasonable price. In terms of the visuals, the aircraft still looks absolutely beautiful. It is one of the few virtual aircraft that I've come across where somehow Phoenix have really managed to indicate a sense of weight and feel to the controls through the visuals in the cockpit. The jet also sounds excellent, once again making it very immersive. As stated, manual handling is great. For me, the Phoenix Airbus A320 physically feels like flying an Airbus more than any other Airbus add-on that I've flown. Systems depth is generally top-notch. Of course there are one or two accuracies here and there, and again, slightly bested by the FS Labs aircraft in that regard. And the same with the failure modelling, the Phoenix Airbus A320 has some of the best failure modelling implemented within the sim, albeit I think the FS Labs has a more complex failure model overall. The Phoenix Airbus A320 family makes use of the ProSim software, so you are essentially getting a semi-professional experience here within Microsoft Flight Simulator. As I've already mentioned, Phoenix have been pretty tireless in updating the aircraft since its release, always a commendable thing to do. We've seen multiple minor improvements, as well as the Block 2 update, the IE engines as well, the Sharklets, and now as well, of course, we have the 319 and 321 family. A lot of that work was free of charge, which again, highly commendable, and all of Phoenix's products very cost effective, very reasonably priced overall. For me, Phoenix do still cling on to the top spot for another year. Their add-ons are excellent, again, very reasonably priced, and overall they are a superb bunch of guys and a brilliant dev. So there you go guys, I do hope you enjoyed my overview of what I believe to be the best add-ons currently available for Microsoft Flight Simulator as of the start of 2025. Of course, there will always be some sort of personal opinion that creeps into these sorts of rankings, but overall I've tried to be as objective as I can, and certainly I don't think there is a single bad add-on on the list. At this point we have a whole host of excellent add-ons available for both Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and of course a few as well for 2024. I'm sure we'll see more and more add-ons coming to the newer platform as the year progresses. We certainly do have some exciting add-on releases lined up for 2025, and as ever, I shall endeavour to do my best reviewing each of them throughout the course of the year. Once more, I really hope you enjoyed the video and found it to be of use. If you did, please consider giving the video a like. If you want to see more content from the channel, then please do consider subscribing as well. And again, if you would like to help support the channel further, you can do so by becoming a channel member or patron, with links to both of those down in the video description below. Thank you very much, as always, to my channel members and patrons for all of your support. It is very much appreciated. To all of you, once again, wishing you a very happy 2025. Take really good care, and I will see you all again soon.